Getting started. All right, looks like we have a few people here already, and I'm sure some more will trickle in, but welcome to the Tesla Quartet Open Rehearsal. We're working on the String Quartet number 2 by Bartok, and so one thing we're going to do this week is we noticed that some people had a hard time hearing us, so we're going to lean in and talk to the microphone. So if I look a little silly leaned over like this, it's just so everybody at home can hear us speak. Other than that, we wanted to work through a few things today. I'll just say a quick reminder that tomorrow night we're giving a performance of this piece at 7:30 Eastern Time. That'll also be live streamed. So for anybody who's interested and doesn't know already, they can register for those links on our website, and we'll be happy to share them with you. Other than that, why don't we get into some playing, and if you feel like giving us some love in the comments, go ahead and make yourselves known. Put whatever you want. If you want to ask a question, we'll probably be getting to them periodically throughout the session, and definitely at the end we'll take a look at some of the questions and see what we can do about answering them. Otherwise, let's get to work, guys. What do you think?
Sounds good. Should we just play the opening?
Play the opening, yeah.
Why don't we play the recap as well when this music comes back? and then see how we can compare the two in terms of what Bartok is asking for us to, how he's asking for us to play them.
Ross, can I ask you a question? If you had to describe the primary difference between the opening material and when it recapitulates, what would be your thoughts on that?
I think the opening is kind of exploratory. I think it's, in a way, the rising line of the fourths is asking a question in a way, I think. There's some sort of also maybe nervous energy in the environment coming from the middle voices. Whereas I think perhaps in the recap, when he asks it to be the same tempo but always molto tranquillo, so he's asking it to be more calm. So I think maybe instead of searching, questioning, it's more like pondering. So perhaps, and it doesn't keep going in the same direction. He shifts the intervals and the music doesn't really go in the same direction. So maybe if it's more like we're just in the moment in the recap, maybe just feeling a little more tired or a little more resigned, whereas in the beginning I think it's more about asking a question about what's going to develop.
That's good. Also, I think to aid what you were saying, we, this first exploration stage and then I guess reminiscence stage, maybe we can just play the chord. So I'll play my first note and you play two of your notes so we can hear what chord.
The harmony changes.
What harmony, yeah. And then can we compare that to the first harmony of the recapitulation?
So like that's a
Yeah,
It's
so
much warmer,
I don't know if you heard that difference, through the microphones, but there's more warmth, more openness in the harmony, even though the elements are very similar, but it's almost like a little different seasoning to that type of music. Yeah. So you want to now try both again, the same excerpts, and see how we can transform them.
thinking about this opening, I think in a way is what actually ends the opening section. It's like a thought that just occurred to us that needs to be answered in the following section. So maybe in the next time we play through the opening, we can also look at, and maybe I actually wouldn't mind doing one more time. And I know sometimes we've worked on it a little bit, but maybe we could try still having two separate areas where the sound exists. So like the duet between cello and violin being in a way in the forefront, and then the atmosphere being what the inner voices create. I thought perhaps this time we peaked at our emotional intensity a little too soon, so maybe that might help hold it off a little bit.
Just one more question. At square one, the rehearsal number one, Serafim, there's a rest with a comma that indicated by the composer. What would you? What's your opinion on that? Is there some sort of a characteristic distinction that he needs the comma, or do we need a pause?
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think it's that moment of perhaps when you get caught off, sort of you're either you're saying something and you realize that you're you like just remembered something, or you're feeling lost. So maybe that comma could be, after I finish.
Yeah.
Sort of
almost like hanging in the air.
And then find a moment to sort of recapture the moment. I can definitely give it more time, more energy, and sort of. I think I can do a little bit more expressively.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you want to do this one more time?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Something kind of abrupt about the way we end the first phrase. I think that might be what he's. It might be what he's intending.
Three of us can hold it longer. He ends the measure before.
Right. Yeah. I have a rest when you have the last eighth.
Yeah, we don't coincide the rest.
So maybe you can help hold a tiny bit for me.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to just do
from
like
the top? Yeah, from the top.
Okay. Sure.
That rounds things up really nice. nicely, I think.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Do you want to try the
Recap,
recapitulation?
yeah. So the recap is when the music returns to its original material. So, but it's not fully recap as Mark Steinberg said, right?
Yeah. With a twist.
It's with a twist, yes.
I like that feeling. There,
Mm-hmm.
it now seems clearer that there's a more relaxed, contemplative, perhaps, element to the way we play this, as opposed to there's a little bit of a nervous energy or something at the moment that wants to keep moving forward.
Mm.
And
I like
and
the contrast.
inner voices also change its shape. We the first time we undulate between two notes. Da, 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 da. This time it's a flat line. Dee, da, dum, ba, bum, ba, dee. So it's much it supports your theory for sure.
And what we were working earlier about that little comma, little rest. This time there isn't such thing. He actually, so if the bass line, these are the two notes where the bass line is leaving, it eventually transitions to different sort of key area, even though it's technically atonal music, but it still has the sort of the gravity that pulls it in. And it's like this time he's more confident perhaps, so he doesn't have to feel like he has to stop and restart.
Do you mind if we jumped to something in the second movement? Yeah, there was a couple places that I think we wanted to work on.
I think if we go along with the idea of that comma that you just talked about, Serafim, we can maybe discover some of the meanings that we have in the second movement for our grand pauses, meaning nobody's playing in the moment. There are many of those moments in this music, so we like to discover what that feels and what our intention for those moments are. So how about we start from 18?
Can we go from the a tempo just before 18?
Yes, that's better place.
Do you have two eighth note pickups to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dum,
go
dum,
up
ding.
to.
Let's go to up to 22.
Okay.
Okay.
So and we're listening for the rest.
Yeah.
Sort of the moment of complete rest and how we're shaping it.
Absolutely. When the first fermata happened after your da da dum ba ba bum ba ba bum ba bum, what's your feeling for that? What do you guys think?
Well, I have an observation that perhaps I was maybe ignoring before. That the first ones you're mentioning, the fermatas are written over bar lines, whereas later the fermatas are written over bars of rest. So this could imply a difference in the length of time of the fermata, but also in what are we holding. When it's going over a bar line, it's like you're holding the liminal space in between two things. But if it's over a rest, it's like you're holding a moment of pause. So maybe that can inform how I bridge after you finish. There's a precipitous moment there that we're holding the fermata.
Right.
I also noticed that your crescendo result in Edwin's fortissimo.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Da da dum ba ba bum ba bum ba ba bum ba ba bum. But in my case, when you finish fortissimo, I come in forte, like as though whoa. Hold your horses. Right? So maybe we can just highlight those elements as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Intentional pauses.
And maybe we could treat the three short phrases more as question and answers. Right now, it seems a little like we just take turns, but I think okay. The 16th note line goes up for the first one, and then it comes down, and then another register. So maybe we can have those, thinking about how we hold the space in between them as the moment to consider the question, and then we give the answer, and then we have to to evaluate whether we thought that was the appropriate answer and give a possible second opinion about the answer.
Yeah.
Then I think that final fermata, because the music then continues, I feel like then we should be comfortable with what we've just said. Like now it's it's kind of become ingrained now that we've kind of spent time asking and answering the questions. So.
Yeah. Why don't we go from 20?
Did you just say you said 20?
What if there was like a timing that felt like we were not stopping in between? So instead of so what if we don't stop time? We just let it like kind of hang in the air, and then fall with the answers.
Yeah. It's, right now it sounds like, you know how like you're saying something maybe not very appropriate, and then there's like a silence in the room, and we're just like, oh. So it sounds a little dead right now, just like cricket. So yeah, you want maybe a little bit more connection between them.
Yeah, sounds good.
I like how that felt. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
that's good. somebody commented already. Well, I actually asked if they would describe this music, if we would describe this music as being somewhere in between monophonic and polyphonic. And it's funny that it starts out very polyphonic, but if you notice at the end of the section we just played, we're all playing exactly in a monophonic way.
Mm-hmm.
So Bartok uses this technique a lot, where there'll be sort of divergent viewpoints, and almost like as in a discourse, the viewpoints start to converge until there's a sort of, the whole group is playing around the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'll also do the opposite. He'll start with convergent viewpoints, and they'll eventually become more and more disparate.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can try that element in the last section of this movement. You know, where we start, sounds very monophonic, and then you branch out to sort of different thing, and then in end we get together and play complete unison stuff.
Completely in unison.
So maybe we can show sort of how it starts in the same sort of vein, and then we sort of branch out. You know, it's almost like the trains. You know, trains go the same way, but then they get out of each other, and then somehow they converge back on the same track. You want to just try that? And because I also wanted to try something in the very end of this movement. Okay. So maybe we can just do this bigger excerpt.
I also know that you wanted to do something right where we had just ended.
Yeah, it's fine. This is a
okay.
perfectly good discussion.
Sure.
Yeah.
So why don't you do... Yeah, that was nice. And the thing about the end, I was wondering, you know, we have tagadam, tagadam. So we have the rest right before the last ba 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 ba. So we have tagada rest, rest, da 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 da. And what I wanted to explore is how can we use this rest, not perhaps as much as like for like a pickup, but have a heft and weight of it. Tagada, tagadam, da, like kind of like where are you expecting it, but it's not there. It's still a little later, rather than just, you know. Can we try maybe just from 52?
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting the heft of that rest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one more time.
Yeah.
Can we follow you?
Sure.
At the last two measures?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really I really like the sense of the first note of the sostenuto is a rest, and it's really filled with energy.
Serena says, "Wow, that was cool."
Mm.
Yeah, I think so too.
Can
Yeah.
we try it one more time?
Yeah.
And pace the crescendo so it's feels maybe perhaps a little more exponential. So
Oh yeah, a little more at the end.
So,
Yeah.
so that we don't get too hot.
Yeah,
too soon.
more trumpet shape, crescendo.
I really.
Yeah.
You wanted to do another
Yeah, can we
spot,
jump
right?
to
Yep.
if we go to 22? The reason I wanted to talk about this was I noticed the other day when we were playing it, I thought the character, we can define our character more strongly.
Okay.
Do you mind playing from 22 to 24?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot, Serafim.
Please, yeah.
Please.
Can I ask you to describe to me the character that you would like to play out of the Yum Bum Dee, like the words?
I think it's like sinister, sort of maybe a little bit sort of nagging, like.
Okay. Do you mind
Sure.
just solo demonstrating what that sounds like to me? Bumping. Let me play with you there. Let me see if I can imitate your character. This is good.
Yeah.
For a second, sometimes I feel like it's a little nice, and
Okay.
as long as we keep this sort of mischievous, maybe even take it further than we're taking it, but
Okay.
this idea that we can be a little bit mean here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of liking it without it getting too loud, but
Sure.
this sort of that sort of the teeth of the moment.
Okay.
I wanted to.
I remember in our discussion with Mark Steinberg on Wednesday, he was talking about how he sees this piece as kind of a parallel to King Lear, at one point he was talking about how the fool, the character of the fool, serves the purpose of being able to criticize King Lear without retribution, because it's understood to be a joke, even if he's telling awful truths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is menacing, or if it's mischievous. Like, you may be saying things that are mean, but also with an air of humor, or somehow it's not meant to actually stab some.
Okay.
I wonder if you could goad each other a little bit.
Yeah.
The interaction is polite, even if you're saying mean things. But
Okay.
yeah, why don't we try playing it with the armpit system?
And if it could get out of it goes crazy towards 20. Like, it should get we should be enraged maybe at this joke that's being told at us. It gets under our skin.
Sure.
It gets under our skin, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think we could try starting, it seems a little. Maybe we could dial back just at the beginning of it, just to keep it kind of in the piano world, but with still with the same character. But like maybe we'll just give ourselves a little bit more to develop the feelings that happen to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the whole trajectory of that of those phrases seem like they have a destination and a story to them.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, anything in the last movement that we wanted to cover before tomorrow's concert?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I think maybe the feeling of how we get through the andante section
Sure.
between 2 and 4,
Okay.
because it's like kind of a very long term swell with a bit of a much shorter relaxation, so or more abrupt, I suppose, relaxation. Maybe we can just try to see what this pacing feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
You want us to use 2 measures before, or you want to start directly at Adagio?
You can start a couple measures before.
Okay.
One of the things I noticed, which is a little unusual, is that the stringendo, or the moving forward in the tempo, its peak and the peak of the crescendo that he writes don't coincide.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm not sure if I'm really understanding where those two moments are actually happening. Perhaps we're getting to our loudest point right now at the moment of the peak tempo, but maybe we can allow ourselves to get to our max tempo, but allow it still to get louder beyond that, so it'll slow down before it starts to get softer. So can we see if we can have the kind of those two different waves? And I just want to also check in my score really quickly to see that when we take turns with these entrances, speaking this lament.
Before 3.
This is
we're getting into
like between 2 and 3. I just want to see.
I need to be reminded of the scheme in the 4 bars before 3.
Okay.
So,
it's.
So the first statement is in piano dolce, and then Michelle's statement is in mezzo piano dolce, And then back to me, mezzo forte,
Mezzo piano.
mezzo piano, and then piano again.
Yeah.
So this is another arch
Yep.
Yeah.
that we could show.
Mhm.
So it'd be actually would be really great if it sounded piano at 3.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I have the last response
Mhm.
before the crescendo starts the moment later. So da-da-dum, 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 da-da-dum. And then right there it starts crescendoing.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a second.
Mhm.
There was something positive that came out of that. It was like we didn't feel a need to crescendo all the way to like forte or something.
He doesn't even give us a
He doesn't even give us a
destination.
forte. So there was something about the way we went over that arc that was made it seem like somehow more contained.
Can we do it? Can we just do it one more time?
Yeah.
Experience that. I think when the 2 bars before 3, for you and me, Michelle, somehow I'd like to hear our interval.
I know, yeah.
A little more clearly
I
on
know.
that moment.
Maybe vibrato is getting in the way a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll try.
Also, one more element I noticed. It's usually in the sort of original version of the element. So there's not as much of a leap, but notice that as it gets more sort of, maybe we can really show this intervals, because I think that's another element that.
Sure, yeah. Sorry.
Just a little bit too open, too loud. What if we try to meet each other, but you're just on top of my sound rather than quite as initiating.
I was just
like,
conscious about where you were standing, and then I was standing. Yeah.
Let's try just
Let's
4
try that.
before, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yep. difficult to do these. You know, it's kind of like, you know, tap your belly. What's that? Rub your belly and tap your head.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do rallentando with the crescendo and diminuendo in the middle of it. I feel like we're not really achieving rallentando now.
Can we make it even more complicated?
Yeah.
I'm also seeing the micro shape. Diom, biom, diom, boy, diom. And I love to hear the sort of the profile as that's shared in the quartet in the context of the larger.
Yeah, sounds
shape.
good.
Can I offer perhaps a way of thinking about the rallentando?
Yeah.
So the stringendo, if we think about the lines going down, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum. What if it's like falling, ta-da-dum, but when it's ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, da-da, da-da. What if it's like, you really have to like bring it, it's obviously, I'm mostly singing my part, but you also guys, you're all going up. So like with every note, it could be heavier and heavier and heavier. You want to try like that?
Yeah.
Why don't we just go from with a
40
poco,
for 3?
poco, yeah.
Stringendo? Okay.
Stringendo
Yeah.
style, sure.
No,
That
that's
was
good.
new.
Yeah,
That to me, perhaps what I noticed was every eighth note in the end of the rallentando this time, which felt a little less naturally like the long range feeling that the larger feeling was controlling the slowdown.
Okay.
I thought we were kind of pushing each eighth note perhaps a little too insistently to show that it's a rallentando, whereas I thought, you know, perhaps what we had done the previous time was the longer range. The bird's eye view felt much more up and down and natural and coming to rest in a more, I suppose, in a more gentle way. This was a little bit more like we were actively like causing friction to make it slow down rather than it dissipating of its own accord.
Maybe we took it a little too far, but let's see if we can preserve what you're asking, you know, natural, not like pedantically slowing down, but having the idea of ascend, maybe a little more than we had in the past.
Just one last time?
No, it's not.
How did that feel?
I thought the pacing was really nice. If we could still maintain the profile.
What do you think?
Yeah. If we could still maintain the profile of the interactions.
Yeah.
It's something we'll also experience in other Bartoks. When we have interactive stuff like that's in the third quartet and the sixth quartet, it's going to come back a lot, and it's a really cool element to bring out when it is there.
I'm a huge fan of when the quartet members actually create pulses.
Yeah.
It's not, there's like a hidden tiny little conductor just like that, following it, like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
but rather making the music happen, like turning it. I'm a fan of that, so yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Is there questions? Is there any
Any more
questions?
questions?
Well, there's been a few comments, and actually we've managed to answer some questions along the way, which is great.
Yeah.
But maybe this is a better time than any. What questions might you have that you would want to ask us, and we're ready to answer? And while you're thinking of questions, I'll just go ahead and mention again that we have a concert tomorrow night at 7:30 that we're going to be live streaming. And if you don't have the link yet, go to our website teslaquartet.com and we'll and register for the Bartok journey, and we'll supply you with all the links. Also, if you really like the content that we're making and you want us to make more of it, we're going to be doing this for the next few weeks. But please go to our website, click on the donate button at teslaquartet.com/support, and you'll find ways of being able to help us make more of this content and provide it for you. So however you...
And if you want to enlarge your outlook into Bartok's music, we strongly recommend, unless you have already, watch the talk we did with Mark Steinberg, and this week, I guess it was Wednesday, and last week we had a great and very illuminating talk with Professor Bureau, who is great scholar and wealth of knowledge. And then next week we have somebody very exciting. It's one of the folk musicians from this folk ensemble Musikash, and we'll get a chance to speak with somebody who is right there, sort of in the trenches, playing all this folk music, and how does it relate to us more classically trained. Yeah.
Let's see. So not any more comments, but thank you, Serena, for you've got another one. What type of... This is also from Serena. What type of genre are these pieces considered to be? This is a great question, considering that a lot of times when we talk about classical music, we call it all classical music, but that's a term that doesn't encompass everything in its categories and its detail. So I would call Bartok early 20th century I would call it modern music and post-tonal, and I would also call it cubist.
In a way.
But also romantic, right? In a way, that's very romantic.
Well, I think romantic perhaps in the sense that this particular quartet and the first have like beautiful melodies that you kind of sound like in a way romantic, but I think really the treatment of the harmony and his language is very, very much removed from the sentiments of romanticism as a 19th century genre, and definitely the modernist in terms of what modernism was trying to achieve in the early 20th century, which was in fact a much stronger break from the sentiments of romanticism. I think there's a lot here, especially in getting to the root of the folk music and then turning that into an element of a real musical element, not just as a quotation or as a caricature, but to really dissect another language and reincorporate it into a kind of a standard tradition, kind of classical with a little c tradition.
And that's segueing into this next question that you see from Jim Hansen. Do you see some spot where we hear Bartok going from early Bartok to later Bartok? Jim's observation is that we seem to still be in the same sound world as the first quartet. But in our discussion, and I think Ross, you have a good way of talking about this. You talk about the way Bartok sort of embraces romanticism early on, but how he bit by bit incorporates the folk stuff into his language until it becomes. I mean, you have a way of saying it. I don't want to say it all, but how it eventually gets entrenched completely, so that it becomes its own style.
It's kind of like a bread dough.
Bread dough, yeah.
Have you made bread before? Yeah. It's like the dough.
I think in this particular quartet, so for instance, at the end of the second movement, where we played the passage that was very soft and very fast, which just has a lot of scampering notes. That's something that you see develop in his music later on. And you'll hear it in the fourth and fifth quartets particularly. Bartok really loved the outdoors and particularly nighttime. And you can hear kind of the buzzing of insects and, just kind of the atmosphere sitting on your porch on a summer evening. And he captures that kind of scurrying kind of experience, in the second movement of this quartet. That's a little bit of a precursor, I think, to some of his later things. And we have another quartet about commenting on the context in Bartok's life during the composition of this quartet, and we touched upon this in our talk on Wednesday. But he wrote this quartet during World War I, and as Mark was saying in the talk, Hungary's borders were closed, so he couldn't leave the country. And up until the First World War, he had spent most of his summers traveling around the countryside in Eastern Europe, collecting the folk music that he would then later, incorporate into his musical language. And so, I think his inability to travel and to experience this other music probably had a strong effect on him, as did just the circumstances of the war. So I think that is perhaps the reason why it doesn't end with a rousing final movement, the kind of the typical excitement that kind of gets you on your feet, but that it's really a dark and desolate, a devastated character to the third movement. I think that kind of reflects the time he was writing this in. I think definitely the historical context, the social context when a piece is written can really help inform an interpretation.
I like this. Is this really post-tonal or more pentatonal?
Oh, pantonal.
Pantonal. So pantonal. Well, it's almost like tonal adjacent.
Yeah, it's like as I was saying earlier. It's like Bartok is not necessarily tonal music, but I feel like there is always some sort of a gravity towards a mode that is perhaps something a little bit more of you feel a little bit more at home in it than, let's say, if you would compare it to like a late Schoenberg or Berg, where it's really kind of you don't really have much a gravitational pull towards anything.
I suppose I would describe it more as a modal musical language.
Yeah.
Because tonality, pre-atonality, is basically the premise that you are either in a major or a minor key, and the harmony works in such a way that you create tension with the dominant chord and you resolve it to the home key, and that gets stretched. Atonality is where there's no harmonic function from one harmony to a next. One note doesn't necessarily want to go to another note, and so you have that kind of freedom to compose without tonal restrictions.
Yeah.
But Bartok is actually kind of in another region, kind of outside of these two different systems, where he's using the types of scales or modes that folk musicians would be using. So, for instance, the 5-note pentatonic mode, or certain maybe 8-note modes where there are half steps and whole steps in certain places that aren't major or minor scales, and I think the restriction of a certain collection of notes in a mode is then what you use to build, instead of having all 12 chromatic keys in the octave, or the 8 notes of a tonal octave. So I would say it's really more about using different modes, different collections of certain pitches to create the language. So yeah, that's what's kind of unique about his language, is that he's really created this from the influence of music that had already existed and had a tradition of its own for 1,000 years. So yeah.
Amazing. Gosh, well, thank you all so much for joining us for this open rehearsal. We've got another one next week, also on Friday. But for now, you have to look forward to our concert tomorrow night, and we'll keep you informed with all of our upcoming events. Thanks again for tuning in, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.